Meeting of the Minneapolis Board of Estimate and Taxation for March 13th, 2024. I'm Steve Brandt, the president of the BET. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify the presence of a quorum.
Commissioner Fry.
Here.
Abene.
Here.
Payne is absent. Chugtai is absent. Vice President Priest-Stinson.
Present.
President Brandt.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. I should add that Commissioner Payne is traveling on city business, and Commissioner Chugtai went home early today recovering from a car accident. I will now acknowledge the fact that the Board of Estimate is meeting today on indigenous land, and we do not forget their earlier presence in this place. We'll now proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access on the city's legislative information management system, which is available at limsminneapolismn.gov. Board members, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. Is there a motion?
Second.
We have a proper motion before us. Any discussion? With that, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Next is the acceptance of minutes from the February 28th, 2024 meeting. May I please have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a proper motion before us. Is there any discussion? With that, all those who are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the minutes are accepted as presented. Our next item, number 4 on the agenda, is acceptance of public comment. Does the clerk have anybody signed up? We have nobody signed up for public comment today. So we will continue to the next item on our agenda. And item number 5 is a discussion regarding the Abdo Financial Solutions contract. Just to set the scene from 2 weeks ago, the contract we have with Abdo for consultant services expired at the end of 2023. We have some work left over. There is money remaining in the contract, but we would need to take action in order to complete the capital audit that was begun last year and make some corrections. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Priest-Stinson.
I'm using the hand signing. I don't have my little placard here. So, yes, I would like for us to move forward with what we have previously discussed and seem to have alignment around, which is moving forward and completing what we started. And so I'd actually like to offer a resolution that Abdo is to revise, complete, and present to the BET at a future meeting around the capital audit. The revisions necessary should accurately reflect census data, park spending by current ward boundaries, and this work should use the lowest hourly rate, Abdo personnel appropriate, working with Julie Weissman of the Park Board and consulting the MPRB CIP database, which allows searching of park capital expenditures by ward. The cost of this work shall not exceed $12,000. And I also just want to say where the figure comes from. Thank you to President Brandt for meeting with Abdo, and they have said that this work would cost a maximum of $12,000. So I would like to authorize the maximum amount if that is needed. In this motion and in this resolution, you will note that I didn't say the work plan. We have already discussed and decided as a board that we will move forward with work plans moving forward. So the specifics of when the meetings are happening to make sure that we come in on budget would be managed by our president and working with Abdo. And so I feel like that's an offline thing that we don't need to include in the resolution, but open to discussion.
Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Commissioner Fry.
Thanks. Generally speaking, very supportive of this. A quick clarification point. It is assumed or presumed that we're going to need to spend more to have the corrections made?
From the discussions that I'm aware of, yes. I will also note that on that note, I do want to note it for the board that it is not lost on me, so I'm actually glad you brought it up, that it does seem that when work needs to be corrected, of which we've already paid for, that it should just be corrected. So I do still strongly feel that way. But I'm also open to own as a board that, you know, there perhaps could have been more guidance and collaboration with the Parks Board, but all the same, I do think it was very clear the direction that we gave on what we meant by capital audit and what that means for, what that means infrastructure-wise of who are the departments and the moving pieces of which you would need to work with to do that. But I'm glad that you brought it up, and I do agree with you, while also understanding that I do still feel comfortable with that dollar amount, not exceeding that dollar amount. But I do think that it's worth bringing up, and I'm curious, President Brandt, if that came up in your discussions.
When I first floated the idea of completing the work with ABDO, I asked if they would complete the work as originally specified for no additional charge, and they said no, they would expect to be paid additional amounts. So that's when I asked what the additional amount would be, and we got a range, and this is one end of that range. So I offer that. Mayor Fry?
So my understanding, and again, I could not, it's possible that I don't have my information correct here, is that the deficiency was in part additional data that needed to be provided with respect to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, which would be perhaps fair to provide additional monies for, but the other part was just using an incorrect council ward map. And if that's the case, it doesn't make sense to provide money, additional money for a work product that was not what we were expecting to begin with.
Commissioner Fry, I have been told by ABDO that they used the ward boundaries that were current as of March 2022, and the Charter Commission, I'm just handed a note by the clerk, adopted the redistricting plan on March 2nd, 2022. So it's my understanding that they did use the correct ward boundaries. There was some question about that during their presentation. Commissioner Priest-Stinson.
I was going to say that I think we could also we can also allow for some of the feedback that was given to us from ABDO around their experience of getting information and some difficulties in where they were getting it from, and so getting information from the county and other places. And so I also just want to allow for, through the evaluation of our working relationship and those kind of administrative pieces that we've already identified that were difficult, I think that's another explanation that we can give, and where we landed on these difficulties of getting some of the information, and now this is very clear and specific. So I think there were a couple of inputs, but I hear you, Mayor Fry, and share those same sentiments. But I do still feel good with going forward with that amount. And I see it less as a correction and more specificity and expanding upon what we asked for, that it actually included more specific Parks Board data, which actually is part of the information that we needed.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Since we're dealing with the resolution here, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
And President Brand, if I could ask, is there a written copy of the resolution that could be provided?
I have a digital copy, which I think Commissioner Priest-Stinson revised on the fly. Maybe we could get that to you after the vote. I know that's a little unkosher, but I guess when you're making last-minute revisions, that sometimes happens. So the clerk, she'll send it to you, and the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Fry. Aye. Commissioner Bene.
Aye.
Vice President Priest-Stinson.
Aye.
President Brandt.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes.
Okay, the motion is adopted to approve the resolution. Item number 6 is a work plan discussion. And at the risk of confusing things, I'm not talking about the ABDO work plan here. I'm talking about the work plan for the Board of Estimate and Taxation that everybody said last meeting they would desire to have approved by the board before for use by our staff. Now, there's not urgency because the hiring practice takes a long time, but I just wanted to suggest to members of the board that they start thinking about what they would like to see in that work plan. If you want to get your ideas to me before the next meeting, that would be just fine. I believe that meeting is on the 27th. So I welcome all ideas in that regard. I have a couple myself that are left over from the ABDO contract. Any discussion on this item? Commissioner Priest Stinson.
One, who is going to serve on this subcommittee? And then two, I just wanted to speak, yes, it can be a long process, but I am confident that we can make this very efficient, allow staff to do what they do best, and just provide them with what we've came up with already in the past, so we're not redoing the work, and then allowing for them to carry out the actual process and us just to guide. But it would be helpful to name who is on the committee, or to see if anybody else has interest.
Thank you for that reminder, Commissioner Priest Stinson. The board authorized a search committee, I believe, of 3 members, and both Commissioner Priest Stinson and I would like to serve. I assume the mayor has too many other things going on to serve, and Commissioner Benny has a job and a half. So I asked the 2 council members which of them would prefer to serve, and Commissioner Chugtai volunteered. And so that would be the composition of the search committee. Commissioner Benny.
Thank you, President Brandt. So there's, I think, a couple topics happening here, though. That's about the staff position and the strategy for the selection process. But I think the work plan is something different. And so what I'm hearing is that the work plan, there's some desire to start assembling the work plan items now before the staff person is hired. Is that what I'm getting?
At least to get board members thinking about it. Obviously, we wouldn't proceed without a consultant or a staff member. Think it's appropriate to bring all the nominated ideas to a board meeting and have a discussion and maybe even do ranked choice voting on them, just to achieve as broad a consensus as we can.
Okay, that's helpful. I think it would be, and I think that's fine to certainly start thinking about it, but it would be my preference that the work plan is guided by the staff person. I know we don't have that person yet, but just because I think, I think that's more appropriate in some ways, and also that I think, that someone can focus on that and develop it more thoroughly and not have to rely on one of the members of the body here. So.
Commissioner Benny, you could also make, I suppose, the argument that the elements of the work plan might guide what we look for in a staff member as well. Commissioner Mayor Fry?
Yes, is there room for our CFO to be on this as well? I think that she could provide some unique input, just given that she's the one that's often asked to do the work. There's been a lot of talk and some fair points made about the importance of independence of this particular individual. And if the argument is made that the individual should be independent of the administration, then they should also be independent of the council as well.
Mayor Fry, is your question raised in connection with the composition of the search committee or more with the development of the work plan?
I'm talking about the composition of the search committee. I'm suggesting that it would be helpful to have Dashani Dye, as the CFO, as part of this work plan group, simply because she's often the one that it's doing a lot of the work. So whether we're choosing a contractor or we're hiring somebody on, that person is very reliant on city finance for the information that they're getting, and so it makes sense to have the city financial person as part of it.
Commissioner Fry, I'm relying here on my Swiss cheese memory, but I think the resolution adopted last session said that the chair would appoint a search committee of 3 members of the board, but I would certainly welcome the CFO as an ex officio member.
That'd be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Priest-Stinson.
I just wanted to speak to that. I do think that that makes good sense because even though they're working independently, when they need things, it will be the CFO that prioritizes and also directs where that should come from, or who to work with in order to make, fill in the blank happen. And just from a value proposition statement, I do agree that having the staff person be part of creating the work plan makes good sense because part of that work plan is going to be heavily relied upon, especially in government, but just out in the world, building relationships so that people know, so that this person that we bring in knows who to go to, and starts to build those relationships that establish trust to be able to go forward with the work. And so it makes good sense to me, just personal values, but also really the values of our city, that would be something that is co-created amongst several folks to include the new staffer. So just wanted to lift that up, that I agree with it and appreciate it. And I do think, ex officio is just fine. But I do think that Deshani, Director Dye, should definitely be consulted.
Okay, well, I think we'll bring her into the process, and the message I'm getting here today is it's fine to collect ideas for a work plan, but go slow on the actual adoption until we have a better handle on where we end up personnel-wise. Okay? Any other discussion? Okay, there's one other thing I would like to mention before we adjourn, and that is that on our calendar we have the city assessor scheduled to come in late April. According to the clerk's office, she will be presenting to the council in about a week or maybe even this week, and I would like to not let so much time elapse before we get the presentation, given the importance of the tax base and her assessment report to our work. I've asked her if she can move up the presentation to the second meeting of this month on the 27th. She told me she had a conflict, but she could see if she had a staff member who would feel comfortable. So we'll wait and see on that, but we may move that up. We have no early April meeting. That's why I'm sort of trying to get it done a little bit early. Any questions? Okay. We've completed all business to come before us, so without objection, we stand adjourned.